since '89. External debt, which stood at 4.33 trillion in September of 2022, rose to Kenya shillings 4.851 trillion in March this year. Domestic debt rose from 4.36 trillion in September 2022 to 4.539 in March 2023. We can go further back to the year 2021. Between September 2021 to March 2022, that a comparable period, our debt rose by 405 billion, from 7.96 trillion to 8.401 trillion. External debt was at 4.209 trillion, while domestic debt stood at 4.192 trillion. This was the time Kenya was struggling with the impacts of COVID-19, including implementation of subsidies and the emerging war in Ukraine. But our total debt was still lower than what Ruto has incurred in 6 months' time. Kenya Kwanza has borrowed more than any other regime. They have removed subsidies, raised taxes, but the cash crunch has continued. They cannot pay salaries. They cannot disburse money to schools. They cannot disburse money to counties. They cannot disburse money to the elderly. They cannot finance the National Hospital Insurance Fund. And nearly all major infrastructure projects have stalled. Where is the money going? It is being stolen and being spent on wrong priorities to massage Ruto's ego. And that is not all. Quietly, Ruto is trying to change the country's debt ceiling from the current absolute number of Kenya shilling 10 trillion to a moving number of 55% of GDP. And right now they are trying to bring an amendment in Parliament that will remove the parliamentary authority to sanction increase of debt. The debt level is already 60% of the GDP. To beat that violation of the law, Ruto wants to force an amendment to the Public Finance Act to allow the National Treasury and not Parliament to set new debt ceiling. Which is why we are calling on Kenyans to reject excess taxation to finance wasteful expenditure. It is urgent that we bring Ruto back to earth because he lives on another planet. As this bill heads to the National Assembly, we must remind Ruto that excessive taxation is stifling growth. We must tell Ruto that when people have to park cars at home because of cost of fuel, it is bad for the economy. We must tell him that when Kenyans postpone traveling up country because they can't afford fuel or fare, it is bad for the economy. We must tell him that when people choose to stay indoors because they want to spend less on expensive goods, it is bad for the economy. And you must tell him that these things are happening now here in this country. Rather than burden Kenyans, we want Ruto to undertake the following. 1. Stop duplication of county roles and responsibilities. In the proposed bill, budget for health is growing by 35 billion shillings at the national level, yet health is a devolved function. 2. Adopt a zero-based budgeting don't take the previous budget as the baseline. Every budget must start at ground zero, where everything has to be justified. 3, don't grow the size of the budget. Cut it down and live within your means. 4, instead of imposing new taxes, see the loopholes that lead to the loss of revenue. 5, stop non-essential government expenditures, including the appointment of the chief administrative secretaries. 6, reduce the size of government. 7, cut non-essential domestic and international travel. 8, freeze ministerial out-of-station allowances, ministerial house allowances, and domestic allowances for cabinet and principal secretaries. 9, stop corruption and theft of public funds. 10, finally, we ask Ruto to humble himself, withdraw this bill, offer apology, and seek forgiveness from Kenyans for the anxiety caused then, and begin afresh. The one point I wanted to mention that the budget for the parliament is 41 billion shillings. That of the judiciary is 23 billion shillings. But the budget for housing, which is talking about as its flagship project, is 29 billion. Parliament, with only 400 or so many members, it will allocate 43 billion shillings for members to be globe-trotting around. Yet housing, which is saying is fundamental to his budget, is only allocating 29 billion shillings, less than what is given to members of parliament, almost equal to what is given to the judiciary. Is economics upside down. You have noted that the regime has run out of sound bites and explanations for these proposals and has resorted to threats. But we have agreed with our MPs on what to do. Vote against any tax rises. Should Ruto overrun the National Assembly, we will regroup and overrun him in the wider National Assembly of the whole people of Kenya. End of statement. So, we welcome Madam Martha Karua, who just joined. I would now like to invite the chair of the Mio Council, Honorable Deritu Murithi, to take over from here. Welcome.
Yep. Thank you, Your Excellency. Your Excellency Raila Amolo Odinga, Your Excellency Martha Karua, party leaders, honorable members of Parliament for the state, ladies and gentlemen. But I think we should have applauded the Honorable Odinga for a fantastic speech. Thank you. So my colleagues and I will simply point you to, if you will, specific clauses, because the Honorable Right Raila Odinga has already given to you the broad strokes and highlights of what is going on. So we'll just go into it, and we'll share the presentation with my colleagues. And at the very end, there will be an opportunity for members of the Fourth Estate to ask questions. Now, well, look, I know some other commentators will say, how do you finance, development that you do have to tax? It is true. I mean, budget is an expenditure, and then you finance it through taxation